Should I just text her?
Might be good. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Steve. We're all set.
Okay, so
Oh, there she is. There she is.
Yep.
Pamela, are you with us?
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
All right, so it looks like I'm going to recognize a quorum because there are currently 4 of 5 voting members present with only Rick outstanding. So Rick is our chairman, and because he's not available at the moment, I'm the vice chair, so I'll stand in for him. So at this time at 5:01, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And that brings us to the minutes of the previous meeting. Have folks had a chance to read those?
Yeah.
So if someone wants to raise a motion to accept them, that would be great.
I'll make a motion to accept minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second them, I guess.
Okay.
Go.
So the motion carries, the approved as written.
Okay.
That brings us to communication. So Bernadette,
Yep.
that there was some stuff.
Yeah, we just got one. We got one letter from the. Is it cutting out for you guys, or is that just me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Okay. We got a letter from the Bellingham Housing Rehabilitation Program, which is the town office that if someone is going to rehabilitate a property that's more than 50 years old, we get notified from them that there's a rehabilitation happening. So we received it on, the address is 42 Little Tree Lane in Bellingham. Steve and I sent it to Steve, we looked at it. It is looks like a split level ranch. It doesn't look like anything historically significant that we have to think about, but it's nice to know that we will get these notices from the town when these things happen, so we can deal with the issues if necessary. So, and I think we're going to talk about that a little further down, Steve, when you start talking about the historical things. So,
Sounds good. So is that all we have for communications?
that's, yeah. The other stuff was, we've gotten donations, and those were some, they came with letters saying thank you for what you do, and those kind of basic things. But there's no specific correspondence that needs a response or needs any further action.
All right. So, and I don't believe we have any standing committees, right?
Standing
Committees?
No. Nope.
Okay, so the only thing due at this point would be a financial report, which I know that you just kind of fill in the blanks.
Yeah. So we got another $350 in the mail that I'm depositing tomorrow. Charlie's Tire made a $250 donation and another $100 donation. So we have $1,200 in $100 donations and $250. So we've gotten $1,450 in donations since we started asking in December. So that's really good. And then our municipal budget still has $386.53 left in it. So though that the balance of the gift fund is now $1,760.65. So between the two of them, we have $2,000 almost to do some of these small things we need to do to get the museum open.
Okay. Next up is old business. So from our some of our issues that were outstanding are the renovation update. I guess Bernadette, you're going to take the lead on that.
Sure. Yep. So the electrical work has been done. The lights are in. New lights are in. They're nice. They're bright. You can see things. We have 2 new ceiling fans that look a little more historical than the industrial ones that were in there before. So I went over one day last week and I picked a corner that was almost clear to start in. And that is the area where the schools, municipal and scouts things are going to be. Tomorrow, they're going to be painting the display case that we're going to repurpose in that area that fits in the corner. I started gathering the things together that I think are decent items to show in that area. I can share them with people if we want to see them as we go through the items. I found out there's a beautiful painting of Clara Macy that I think I've been able to identify that it was dated 1964, and that was the year she celebrated her 50th year as a teacher. So I'm trying to find out if it was commissioned by the town, if it was donated. The artist is someone out of Mendon who I was able to find some information about. So I wrote to the Mendon Historical Society to see if they knew anything about how we came to acquire it. I don't know.
You
if
know
Frank,
that it was in Macy School for years and
Was
years
it?
and
Oh,
years
is it?
until
Oh,
they
okay.
closed Macy School at the
Okay.
time that it was, and at that time, that's when it was donated to the
Okay.
Historical
That's
Society.
okay. So
Pam, we're getting a little bit of ambient noise. Could you mute your mic unless you're speaking, please?
yeah, mine is,
Thank you.
yeah. So I sent an email to the school department, to Peter Morano at the schools, to say, ask if they knew anything about it and if they have any kind of archives or history. So as we run into other things that we might need more information about, if the schools have any written records.
Mary Ann Donahue might know
Okay,
the history of that.
okay.
She might.
Okay, yeah. I mean, just trying to figure out, obviously it was done the year she became it was her 50th anniversary. So that seems to make sense, that it was for that. But did someone commission it? Did someone was it a family portrait that they donated to the school? I don't know where it came from, So, I'll get to the bottom of that, but I think that will have I'm thinking of doing above the display case, like a gallery wall of photos, kind of like I did in the history room at the library, a group, which is right behind me. You can see in my fake background is the history room. So some kind of gallery wall with the picture. And then finding the items that need to be protected that should be put in the glass display case. And the other things will just go on these open bookshelves, things that we don't mind if people touch, or not that they will touch them, but that are less valuable or less we want to hang on to, won't have to be in a locked display case. So that's I'm going to work on it. I'm going to really try to spend more time over there. I have to go back into the Domino's building because we stored a whole bunch of things in the Domino's building when we were clearing it out for renovation. And when I put the things in the boxes for there, I labeled what shelf it was on in the museum before. I didn't label what the contents were. So what I'm going to do is go over there with 5 boxes and unpack those. There's probably 6 or 7 boxes of things and put them into the categories that we've already identified. And then I can have all the stuff out and decide what we think are the best things to, really highlight on the displays. I've gone through the museum to the best of my ability, looking in the basement and finding the things that I thought should be brought up. We have the typewriter that John Lumval used to type the original Crimfield comments. So I think that can be we have Clara Macy's desk, so we can put that on her desk. So I think there's some things, I have a vision of what I want the area to look like. And if anyone wants to help, I'm more than open to help, but it's a matter of coordinating schedules, which I think can be difficult, So what I've been doing is emailing the group when I'm planning on going over, and if anyone can join me, you're more than welcome to. I think my next time will be Friday afternoon. I will be over there. Then I'm going to start doing the Domino's things. So that's the renovation update. It's it's moving forward. It's slower than I want it to be. I'm not sure when would be really realistically be able to reopen the building anyway. There's still a lot of restrictions on things. So ideally, our goal was to get it done for Memorial Day. I'm not sure that's, and I don't think the town is probably going to have a Memorial Day parade. I don't know if that's on the schedule or not this year.
Hastings was talking to me about it. It sounds like there are plans in the works to do it.
Okay, because that was our original goal, was if there was a parade that we would try to do the grand opening around that, because there's already a bunch of people already would be in the area. And even if we had to limit how many could come in at one time, we could do the ribbon cutting in front of the building and then do small group tours or whatever, open it up to small groups at a time after that happens. It's a lot of work to do to make that happen though. So that's my renovation update. I got the fundraising. So I told you that we have since I sent out, we've got a few more money in. So the money amount we have, a little further down, I would like to talk about budgeting, how giving some authority to the leadership to be able to spend money to get things done. We don't really have a spending policy. And I did talk to the I emailed Dennis and he sent it to the town attorney, and they basically said we can set whatever spending policy among ourselves as we wish. So there's two ways I think we could go about this. One is I could just ask right now, like I think I'll need $500 in the next month or so to do the stuff that I need to do. So I could just ask for the budget for that, or that we could give the authority to Rick, myself, and Steve, that we send an email to each other saying, I'm going out and buying this thing. And then the other two write back saying it's okay. And then we can move forward and keep things moving. And I have the spreadsheet with the budget numbers. So as long as I keep control over that, you know, that would work too. So I think it's a discussion point. How do we want to handle?
So you are the treasurer as well
No,
as
I'm
the
not.
secretary
I'm not.
right now?
I'm not, technically I'm not, but I have access to the town financial records because I have it through the library stuff. So it kind of just made sense. And it's not really that much of a responsibility. I have access to the town accounts payable. I'm fine with handling both. I don't know how that was handled in the past, but I'm fine with.
It doesn't sound like it was handled much because
Yeah.
there probably wasn't much money.
I think
to
the money,
handle.
I think the money was just basically for the Crimfield Commons. So they paid the bill for the Crimfield Commons and that was about it. So
Pretty much, yeah.
yeah. So if we're going to be doing other things, I think we need to talk about a spending plan. So what do you, Steve? Oh, you're muted, Steve.
So the original proposal sounded good to me about, you know, the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary by unanimous consensus.
Right.
Being able to spend, it seems reasonable.
Right. So if we just send out an email saying, I think we need this thing, the other two write back saying go, and then we go and get it, you know, and I can keep track of balances and report back where we are, even to among the three of us, if it's between meetings, just so we all know. It's like someone says, I need to spend $3,000. Like, wait, we've only got, you know, we can have a discussion as to what we think those things are. But I think I need to buy a lot of things. Well, first I need a vacuum cleaner because we have one little broom that I have to bend over to, to sweep the floor. So I want to get a decent vacuum cleaner. That'll probably be more between $100 and $200 for a decent one, I think. And then things like picture hangers and lucite frames to, you know, there's just a lot of little things we need for the organization. So if I could, you know, if I could have the $500 now, so because I know I'll probably spend that, and then after I spend the 500, make another proposal to among the three of us to do what needs to be done. Does that sound reasonable?
It sounds reasonable. I don't know, again, kind of new in this role. We all are, right?
Yeah.
So what does it take to make this the standing rule? Does that require a majority vote?
I think it's a majority vote, and it probably has to be read as a policy at two separate meetings. So at this meeting, we could wait till next. You could approve the $500 for this meeting, and then next meeting we could write the real policy, and you have to read the policy at one meeting, and then you approve it at the following meeting.
Okay, so I guess for today, if somebody wants to raise a motion for that 500.
I guess I'll raise the motion.
Okay. I don't know that I should second because I'm the one spending the money. So. Pam, are you there to second?
Looks like it's up to Pam if she's still there.
I can second. I'll second it.
Great. Thank you. And then everyone's in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, good.
So the motion carries.
Okay. Update on our online presence. So where's my notes here? So Steve has been added as an editor of the website. Him and I need to figure out some training time for how to do it, but that's down the road. We don't really have much to put up there, but if we do want to add things to it, it'll be nice to have a second person that's an editor of it. I still haven't heard back from Karen about the email addresses for the three of us, Steve, so I'll bug her soon to get a reply on that. I know she said there was one free one that she had to figure out how to do it, so I'll bug her for that. We did set up a OneDrive account, which is a place that we can share files online. So it's kind of like a Google Drive. It is so, and it'll be anyone that wants access to it can have access to it. I can share the username and password with you. Let me know if you want access to it. We've put some photos up there. We put some files up there, and it'll be a good place for us to share documents with each other as we move forward. It's free for up to 5 gigabytes. I added some pictures, and we're already up to 2.17. So we'll probably hit 5 pretty quickly. But you can purchase a terabyte for a year for $70. So it's pretty inexpensive to get a decent amount of space. So when we reach that point, we'll probably have to do something to spend $70 to get the additional storage space. But I think it'll be good. You know, we can store meeting minutes there, we can store agendas there, and everyone can have access to one place if we really want to. We can decide how we want to use it together. But it's there for Steve and I set it up so we could share files pretty easily when we were looking at things together.
This is a historical commission website.
So it's OneDrive. It's like a Google Drive. It's like a Google Drive. It's a place where you can store and share files.
Okay.
It's a Microsoft product instead of a Google product. So that's what I have for the online presence. The other thing that I had that I don't know if this is on is the Crimfield comments. Our next issue is my plan is to publish it in June and mail it out in July. We don't have enough money this year to mail out another issue, I don't think. But if we can get the online one and the email one published, and I was wondering if a good idea for this issue might be to talk about all of these historical buildings and what the commission's role and responsibility in. You know, over the next few months, I think we're going to iron some of that out. So we can talk about, you know, what we have in Macris, which is the state site of things that we've reported to them, and talk about what those things are and, you know, what the role is. A little bit, Steve will talk about our discussion we had with Jim Kupfer, the town planner, about demolition delays. And I think that could be in this. It could be about historical buildings. And maybe we can highlight some and then talk about what our role is and how that moves forward.
Okay. So which brings us to the role of the commission in demolition delay. So one of the first bit of correspondence that we got tonight was a letter from the Bellingham Housing Rehabilitation Program, which let us know that there was going to be a significant change or a demolition occurring. That is merely a courtesy. They're not required to do that. And they only know about that if there's a request for funds that's associated with them. So that it's only under limited circumstances that we find out about a Bellingham property being altered or destroyed. Secondly, the Curly house, we only found out about that essentially because we saw it being taken apart in real time. So if it wasn't on a main thoroughfare and other citizens hadn't contacted us, we wouldn't really have known that or had an opportunity to get in there and photograph it before it was taken down. Because it really is an interesting, you know, it's a late federal period, you know, post and beam construction. It's all pegged and, you know, for the rafters and everything. There's no nails. It was built in 1803, so it's 217 years old. It's somewhat historically significant in its own right, but also to the town of Bellingham. It was owned by the Fairbanks family, which owned the mill on Pearl Street. So
has that come down, Rick? You said, did it come down already?
It's not down yet.
Oh, okay. Because I know he said it was imminent, is what he said.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They're probably just going to wait till the spring.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have no recourse. Number one, we have no notification, and if the citizens of the town don't want it to happen, they have no recourse. The first part, I think it's reasonable that the Historic Commission, if it is our goal to preserve, you know, elements of the history of this town, we have to know when something's going to be destroyed or altered, even if we're not going to interfere with it. At a minimum, it'll give us the opportunity to document it. So that's the first piece. I'm going to work on writing a demolition delay, which would have to be written into the town's bylaws. It's a significant process. It has to be sponsored by a selectman, the whole bit. And I know Jim, when we spoke to him, he wasn't too excited about it, but after we talked to him for a little bit, I think he realized what we're trying to do is not very aggressive. So some towns like Franklin, there's a 12-month demolition delay, and they can swing it pretty easily. It's a 50-year look back. So if any property is being touched that's over 50 years old, which is not a long time in my book, you know, it automatically triggers a notification of the Historical Society, And then the Historical Society has purview to delay construction for 1 year. So that seems pretty aggressive. And I don't think, I mean, they have some pretty significant stuff in Franklin, right? I mean, in Bellingham, maybe we have a little fewer interesting things. And I think the things that we care about are probably older, right?
I wonder if it would be more palatable if you might suggest something with a longer, I mean, lots of houses in town were built 50 years ago that are just track houses,
Yeah,
like
right.
like you were saying,
Yeah, right.
that it might be an easier sell if you suggested something like 100-year
Right, yeah.
window.
We were
That's a
actually
cutoff.
around 150.
Yeah.
I mean, what we wanted to do is take a peek at Macris and see, you know, in 1999 they did a good job of documenting what is historical that is in town, and they did it with a very broad brush. So there's a lot of stuff in there that's questionable about whether it's historic or not. So I'm not concerned that they missed anything. They did a very thorough job. But I think we could use that to say, okay, is it 100 years? It is 150 years. The older it is, the more likely it is to go through, you know. And
well, there were a couple of houses that, when we were doing the Bellingham 300th, Marcia took me around town and showed me where the 1-room and 2-room schoolhouses were that are, you know, they're historic. They actually are all basically privately owned now, but that would be, now that we've identified them, it would actually be really sad if those buildings were just torn down with no acknowledgement of their historical significance.
yeah,
So.
I mean, there's a boilerplate one that I've seen that's used, a set of bylaws that seems to be copied and pasted. My thought was we would write something that was very specifically tailored to Bellingham, you know, and that's something I could do. I can't do it, you know, today or tomorrow, but sometime probably before the summer.
Yeah, well, I think our discussion, I mean, obviously it has to go to a town meeting. So
Right.
I think if we set a goal for getting us an even next May's town meeting, you know, but have the time, spend the time to get it right. I think that Jim said the town attorney will look at it to make sure it's going to pass muster with all, you know, so it's not a quick process. So I think if we take our time and do it right and bring it to town meeting and even do some publicity about it so people know what they're voting on, you know, before May.
Yeah, and he was concerned about funding, you know, okay, well, so we identify something that's needs a, that we want to preserve or keep or whatever, you know, but there's not sufficient funding to do anything with it. So is it a waste of time? And my contention there is no, it's not a waste of time. Number one, that we want that trigger in place that says that when somebody applies for a permit, we get notified. Right, that doesn't hurt anybody, right? It's a little bit of burden on the town to notify us, but it doesn't hurt anybody. And I think that's sort of a minimum if somebody's gonna alter something. But then the second piece is, you know, a little bit of a delay. Maybe it's 90 days, and that just gives us a chance to run out there and document what's there at a minimum. Again, that doesn't cost hardly anything at all to document it, and maybe have a conversation with the owner. You know. Hey, this is historically significant. You know, are you willing to do something? You know, it doesn't have to be town funds, you know, so.
That's actually tied in with the whole Community Preservation Act question that when I brought it up with different selectmen, it got shot down right away, not the right time. It's never going to be the right time, but that's actually a source of funding.
Funds, right.
If people are upset and people are saying this is important, that it might actually be a time to say, remember when everyone got so upset about the Curly property, why couldn't we do anything? It was private property. And oh, by the way, the town has no funding mechanism to do anything. Maybe you'd like to support this.
It's possible.
A thought.
Yeah. I'm open to that. I mean, it'll have to be the voters in Bellingham that ultimately make that decision. I mean, to me personally, Bellingham doesn't seem like the best place for something like that, but you know, that's
Well, it's open space,
It's-
recreation, and historical preservation. It's multitasking.
I mean, I think there is some, today, this week's Facebook thing is people talking about the properties in the corner of North Main and Hartford that are the 3 houses that are in disrepair. That I guess I've someone that posted a new proposal that Kevin Meehan has to redevelop those to a gas station country store thing. That I don't know where it is at the planning board, but there were the images drawn on Facebook, and people are, why do we have to keep putting in more things? So there is a group of people that really are somewhat, but but those aren't historic buildings by any stretch of the imagination either. So that's a whole different thing. But about people that are concerned about preserving whatever character some neighborhoods have. So I think a lot depends where the building is and what its historical significance is.
On that same stretch on Hartford Avenue, just on the other side of the gas station, is one of the old one-room schoolhouses that was on Farm Street and actually got moved there. It used
It's
to,
where the insurance company is?
Yeah,
That the one?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because so what I did last week is I took the Macris, which is the stuff that we have reported to the state that we think is historically significant. There are buildings, cemeteries, artifacts, a whole bunch of things. And I downloaded them into a spreadsheet and I categorized them. Like if it just said 753 South Main Street, like I don't know where that is. So I put it's between this street and that street. So there's some context in the spreadsheet. So that spreadsheet I can upload on that shared drive, or I can email it to everyone if they'd like to look at it. These are things that we've already reported to the state at some point in the 90s, I think, that were historical places. So I think we need to take a look at those. And are there others that we should be adding to the Macris list, or are things, and I don't know if you can take things off of it once you've reported them or not. It's you're reporting them as things that you want the state to know about. And then there's some that are on the state register, and then the national, if it's on the state register or if it's on the national register. And we don't have, the cemeteries, I think, are on the state register, or those the national register. I forget which is which. Two of the cemeteries are on one of them, but we don't have much that's on the Register of Historic Places. We just don't. So, but that spreadsheet is interesting because some of them are just places that, the town hall is obviously, the Baptist church is on there, obviously, but there's other just, random street address. Now, all of the, a whole bunch of them on Maple Street and Ray Ave that are, mill housing. Like there's more than a dozen of them, I think, that are there because they were original mill houses. Now, whether those are historically significant or not, I don't, I think that could be considered questionable. Now, if there was if it was like the mill owner's home, like the Fairbanks house was, that's a different thing than just a workers thing, I think, to some degree. I don't know. So I think that's stuff for us to look at in the future, is to look at that list and kind of go through. And that, if we could, even if we could have a list of properties that we want to be identified about that we could provide to the town, then it would be a less, they could just compare that. So it's not that notifying us about everything that's 50 years old or 100 years old. It's like, these are the ones that are on our radar.
It might be that detailed, sure, yeah.
So I think that's more for the future, but it's a good beginning discussion point for the demolition delay bylaw.
So I think I'm going to ask that this, be sticky on the agenda so that it gets brought up every time and doesn't slide off the table. But I'm going to put it in my to-do list that, sometime hopefully before May, I'll write out my first attempt at it. It'll just be a rough, it'll be a rough idea of what it ought to be, or it'll be my final draft of what I think it ought to be, but it might be a rough draft for what actually happens. So I don't know if we can, if we're done with that topic, but the next one is the inventory of top tier, which is related.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because I think that Macris list could be, there might be some things in the museum that are things that aren't on the list, but I think that list could be a beginning point for us to look at what those, between that list and then the full inventory that Margaret Maxwell did for us. I have just an Excel spreadsheet that's very cryptic. It will just say what something is and who the donor was. So but a lot of them are numbered and they're inventoried. So I can go back to the museum and see that physical thing. And I think some of them, there's a book there that has more information about the objects too. But I think maybe sharing that, the Macris spreadsheet and the inventory spreadsheet with all the members, so we could use that as a beginning point to look for things that we think are best, the best of the best.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. I was trying to whittle it down to 25. I mean, I haven't really done that yet, but I did go through and I identified 140 of the things on that list that I thought were interesting. Actually, 138
On the inventory list?
on the inventory list that I personally thought were interesting. That could be, some of them by themselves are not interesting, but they add context to other objects. You know what I mean? Like, there's a cross from the 1822 windowsill in the First Baptist Church. Part of a display about the Baptist Church and other things. It ties in, it makes it relevant. So that's why I thought it was interesting. But of itself, perhaps not. A couple things that weren't on there. The 1767 mile marker.
Oh, okay. Yep. Well, we know we have that.
Yeah, which actually that probably should go in Macris. It's not in there.
Okay. Yep.
What about isn't there's a bell? There's
Yeah, the bell, the school bell that's in the museum. I don't know if that's on the inventory. I don't think that was in Macris though either.
well, there's a bell that was at Assumption Church that got moved to St. Blaise Church.
Oh. The bell that I thought in the museum was one. It says 1891. I thought it was one of from the schools.
There's several bells in town.
Okay.
There's a bell that's in the bell tower at the Baptist Church, and there's a bell that's also in the yard of St. Blaise that belonged to the Assumption Church and got moved up to St. Blaise. So these are all when you're
This
talking
is one that's
about,
physically in the building. We have a bell that's physically in the building.
I understand.
Yeah, right.
I understand.
Yeah. And my understanding with that, it was the center school bell, but I'm not sure. I'd have to do more research on.
As far as I know, that bell was part of the school, center school too,
Yeah, that's what
to my knowledge. So
yeah. I hope so, because I put it in the school area and it's really heavy and I don't want to have to move it again. I didn't personally move it, but yeah.
We have some really cool stuff though. I just want to highlight a few things, not that this is sort of tangential here, but to show the importance of this particular thing. We have R.C. Fairbanks' diary from 1889. And I have to dig into that a little bit more, but I think that he was the mill owner that owned the Fairbanks house, what we're calling the Curly House. We have this one thing. It's unbelievable. It's a handwritten account book by John White of how he used his indentured servant. I mean, this is a story that's not even told. I never even heard about this.
How is that White spelled? Is that
White?
Oh, okay, it's not okay. Because my house is on a property that was owned by someone, Wight.
You know what though? It's interesting because everything prior to about 1830 or so was written phonetically.
Okay.
So white is white.
Because I know when we bought our land, when we're on North Main Street, so I went and I saw Ernie Taft at the museum, and he had like records of the guy's like tax bills for his, what was it called, Sprout Land, whatever Sprout Land is. It was like all kinds of interesting things and I think the house, ours was just the farmland. It wasn't, there was no building on it at the time, but it was the house across the street that the White family lived in. And I think that's documented somewhere. The house, it's kind of diagonally, where the house that has the relatively newer house that has the stone wall on North Main Street, like across near Oakwoods.
Mm-hmm.
It's the house before that. It's a white old farmhouse.
Mm-hmm.
It's on.
I've been in it. It's a beautiful house.
The white one, yeah. That's just there are records there, and I think that's a lot of things. Is knowing what going through the stuff that's there is a big deal because there's a lot of things there.
So Bernadette, after this call, I may, if you have easy access to the OneDrive, I have it somewhere. I know I have the password and everything, but if I could just send you this inventory the update, just the one that I went through and I just sort of highlighted.
Oh, yeah, your things, we can upload it. Yeah, it'd be good to have an uploaded one that has some documentation, some criteria or someone's input into it. Great. Yeah, that's fine. Great. Sure. And I'll upload it. Yeah. And then I can do is I can share the link with both of them, the Macros one that I did and your revised one with everybody, so everyone can have a look at what those things are.
Let's see. Next is the colonial. Oh, so I think this concludes our old business.
Yeah.
Which is going to bring us on to new business. So first one is colonial era documents about Bellingham. They're currently on eBay. Since we last spoke, there's another one. I don't know. Is there a way that I can share? Is there a way to?
Yeah, I can make it so you can share your screen.
Yeah, that would be good.
Hold on, I'm gonna have to make you a co-host. Give me a second. Okay, do you have the share screen now? Let's see.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I don't. Oh, it's sharing the wrong screen, but okay. Oh, can you see this first document?
Yeah, it's a Excel spreadsheet, yellow. Yeah.
So this is from someone apparently of the Thompson family. Although I haven't come across this name before, David Thompson, but I have a lot of records of Thompsons in Bellingham, and it says this is to David Thompson of Bellingham in said county of Suffolk, Yeoman.
Okay, we're seeing a spreadsheet. We're not seeing a document, Steve.
Okay. How about that? How about now?
There we go. That's a document.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if you look at the very top here, it says to David Thompson of Bellingham in said county of Suffolk, Yeoman, which you notice now we're in Norfolk, but this is where Norfolk existed. So, and it says here, you know, he has he owes £3, 4 and 7 to you know, and it's from 1786, and it's just an interesting bit of Bellingham history. It's currently the owner is asking $150 for it, 149 something, I think. But we have a bunch of Thompson papers now, and I thought this would be a good addition to the Thompson papers that we have. I might be able to actually dig out additional. This looks like this probably might have ended up in probate records somewhere, so there might be copies of it elsewhere as well, where we might be able to tie it to other stuff. This one here, a little bit hard to read, but this is from Bellingham, also in 1786. And this one I do know, I am familiar with this family here. This down the bottom here, it says John Darling.
That's the gun guy.
The gun guy.
The Darling, wasn't there a Darling thing with the guns?
I don't know, but there is sort of an interesting probate saga that I bumped into while digging through records of the late 18th century in Bellingham. The Darlings, one of them died and left his wife some stuff, but then the town got involved because they were worried that the kids were going to end up destitute because of her licentious and drunken behavior. So, and there's a lot of probate records. A lot of Darling family members got mixed up in it, and so you'll notice too another Bellingham name over here, Thaddeus Cook.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So again, this one the guy's asking for $100. This is probably, just so you know, that this is probably a teeny tiny scrap of paper. These type of things tend to be little strips of paper. This one here is more significant, and there's probably ways that we might be able to tie it in with individuals a little bit more clearly.
So are these sellers? They're not local sellers. They're
No, this is on eBay.
Yeah, it's on eBay. Yeah.
Can you offer less than what they're
Yeah.
asking?
You can absolutely offer
Yeah,
less than
yeah.
what they're asking.
Right.
So, but now this guy seems like a legit seller, right? I mean, he's got 13,510 sales with 100% positive feedback.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Could you make we're a historical museum, Billy, what can you do for me?
I know.
I can absolutely pitch it that way.
And we will donate it. We'll be happy to put your name as the donor on the plaque or the subsidized buy on the plaque.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because you can make it. So is an offer, if an offer, I'm not an eBay person. If you make an offer, is that just a dollar amount?
Yeah, an
Is that-
offer
there's
is
no
a
place
dollar
to-
amount and it's binding once you make the offer.
Okay. So yeah.
But then there's an I'd like to.
To,
Is that where
Is that
you
like
do the
correspondence with them?
negotiating?
Yeah.
No, the make the
Contact
best
seller.
offer is just that. You make your
Oh.
offer and they can accept it or refuse it. They can
Yeah.
counter offer as well. But if they accept your offer, you're obligated.
But you can also contact the seller, so you could do a contact the seller and give them our
Mhm.
story. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a contact seller.
You certainly
And
can.
they're both the same. Those are both the same seller.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they are both from the same person.
Mhm.
Which,
Buy one, get one free.
which I wonder where he got them, you know,
Yeah.
but,
But I mean, that could be even a conversation you could have with them. Say, hey, I'm on the historical commission. I'm interested in these. How'd you come across them? Because,
so the question is, do we want to authorize some amount of money to attempt to acquire these? I personally think the top one, the summons to appear in court is a much more interesting piece. They both have names that we recognize though, right? I mean, the Darlings and the Cooks are historically significant names in the town of Bellingham. But the Thompson one is interesting, although I was not able to find a David Thompson. I mean, we know for certain, right, based on this document, he was either misspelled or he existed. But he's probably part of the same Thompson family. I mean, at this early juncture, it's not like it is now where if you have Jones or something, there's hundreds of them, right?
Right.
And at this point, if you have a Thompson in the town of Bellingham, they're probably all related.
I'm wondering if we should talk about not specific items, but some kind of a acquisition policy, like what are we willing to spend? Because what's the next? I mean, I know you can't predict the next thing someone is going to sell. That's kind of really hard. But some kind of a guide, I don't know, like some kind of a guideline as to what types of things we bid on, or what types of things we acquire, and how much we're willing to pay for them. So we have some future. And I don't know where to begin, what those guidelines would be, but I think it'd be good because if we keep getting every month we have 2 or 3 of these, we obviously can't. And what if we miss something that's really good
Right.
because we've bought something maybe it's an annual budget that we set aside. We set aside X amount of money per year.
Is the commission considered a nonprofit that people
Yeah.
can donate to,
No,
They can gift things to people can gift things.
but they don't get a charitable?
Well,
Credit.
gifting things to a municipality, I think, is tax deductible. That I would have to look into. I think gifting things to a municipality is tax deductible.
I would think we need to find that out
Yeah.
before you would
Yeah.
approach
Right.
somebody.
Because we do have a gift fund. And I've never, that's a good question. I can find out about that. Because if it is, that's a good thing to know.
oops. Here's my documents.
I mean, I don't want to put complications in your, things you think are important, Steve, but I think it's good to have some parameters for down the road if these things keep coming up. How much money can we realistically, we have a $4,500 a year budget. Other than gift money, how much can we realistically dedicate to acquiring new things?
Well, certainly I don't, letting these slip through our fingers is not earth shattering. And I thought it was my due diligence to bring them to your attention and to make it known what I thought was relevant. We have a lot of information about the Thompson family, and that to me the Thompson family is what the best window that we have into 18th century Bellingham. So that's what made this one, uniquely interesting. Although, the fact that I got the picture of it, I mean, I did grab a photo of it, which is
Right.
important, right? We don't necessarily have to have the artifact.
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say. We have a representation of it anyway. So even if we don't get the original, we'll still have the information, right?
Indeed.
Hmm.
Indeed, that is
I
true.
mean, and I guess is there like an end, ends in 3 days, ends March 24th? I mean, what happens? He doesn't sell it, he's going to put it back out there. Obviously, it's not going to go
That's
away
already
in 3
happened
days.
once because we
Okay.
forgot to bring it up at the last meeting.
Okay, yeah, okay, because it's not, yeah, so it's not, I don't think these are high demand, items, so we could, I don't know, in a way, personally, I'd like to have some kind of a policy or some kind of a dollar, percentage of the annual budget that we're willing to spend on acquiring, and then we can make a decision is, if we have $500 a year, is this the thing we want to spend the money on now?
Yep.
I'm not going to say no to this if other people think it's important and we should get it. I don't want to let something go by that doesn't, because what you can do is we can approve you spending up to a certain dollar amount to acquire something, and then you try to get it less expensive than if you can.
If the commission decided that we thought it was worth grabbing this and preserving it, of course I count myself a pretty decent negotiator, but I would do my best to acquire it at the best price. But if people are not, they don't think that this is a valuable addition,
I guess the big question is if it's going to be something we display, what else, if we're going to pay for something, we really want to display it, obviously. And what other things are we going to display the Thompson papers somewhere or a portion of them? Or?
Yeah, absolutely should.
Okay.
I mean, to me, the Thompson papers in the talk of the indentured servant, that is just something growing up in Bellingham, I never knew. I didn't know anything about indentured servants to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. And then to realize that it was happening right in Bellingham. And then there's detailed records, on such and such date, so-and-so dug a ditch, cost £3, or whatever. It's very detailed records, and it's a 3-year span of a guy's life. You just don't get a window into people's lives like that.
So my question as far as displaying them is, are we risking their, there's a case of some sort, but what is their, what is the deterioration if they're in, even in a display case?
Yeah, they are. They will. They will.
Right.
They will deteriorate. We have a ton of it. We have a lot of.
Is that something that we could, flatbed scan 1 or 2 pages and try to make them all look oldie timey and display the replicas and keep the original somewhere where
I actually can do that. I've done that before. I get, that little presentation that I gave.
Yeah.
If you had seen it in person, when I give them in person, I usually pass around a few documents and I print them on an old looking paper and stuff.
So let me just show you this. I have this lovely paper that I'm only going to put in front of my face that looks like vellum. And so this isn't finalized yet, but for the museum sponsors, let me get this in front of me. I've got a frame. I'm going to do a different kind of frame, but I basically am going to print it on the vellum and we're going to have the plaque. Why isn't this not? My background is totally interfering with this. But anyway, I do have a whole bunch of it. It looks like parchment. It's copy paper that looks like parchment that you can print on. So you could make it look like that thing. So if we scanned it and then printed it on that, it would look old. And we could put obviously that they're replicas. The originals are,
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I mean, they have survived for, some of them are from, I think the oldest one is from 1728. So that thing is nearly 300 years old. It's, 291 years old. So
if you want me to look at other commissions to see if they have draft policies to draft for acquisitions, I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay to do long term. I mean, the real question here is do we want
Want
it?
it,
You know,
yeah.
that's the real question. It doesn't seem like anybody's terribly excited about it.
Yeah.
So,
But you are.
I am not the town of Bellingham. I am one among many.
Yeah.
So, so I'm happy to, well, I won't say I'm happy, but I'm willing to let this one go without a fight. You know, if it had it been a letter to one of the Thompson people that we already knew about,
Mhm.
it would, I'd cause a ruckus.
Steve, it might be worth having a conversation with the guy though, to see if he's willing to come down in his price.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, with decision, we don't even know really what the bottom line is.
Certainly.
I
Yeah.
mean, if you could have a conversation and say, I need to bring it back to our meeting next month. Can you hang on to it for, obviously it's been up there for a while. Can you hang on to it to see if I can, ask him what his bottom line is.
Yep. Can do. We'll do that.
Okay.
All right. So I think we can probably shelf that topic at least until
Yeah.
next month. It might creep back up again. I'll talk to
Yep.
the owner in the meantime.
Mhm.
And that brings us to discussing the Crimpville comments.
Which I kind of did, but I guess I'd like some input. Do you think the historical buildings is a good topic for the next issue?
Yes.
Or do we have something else in mind that would be more?
I think it's great for a summertime issue too,
Yeah.
because you could actually suggest that people take a drive and go look at them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where people were just talking about the whole curling thing, it's timely.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll start thinking about that, how that will go.
Yeah, visit these gems before they're gone.
Yeah. Okay, and the last thing that I had was the Mass Cultural Council has a spring summer grant application for up to $500 for programming. And it doesn't cover, you can't feed people with it, but you could hire, I was thinking if we are able to do a grand opening of the museum, we could hire like musicians or something to, someone to make it a cooler event than what we could do on our own.
What about a historical reenactor? We had Janet Parnes do Deborah Sampson.
Mhm.
I have a friend who does Calvin Coolidge, who was a Massachusetts governor. Just as a thought,
I think the deadline for the application for this is March 31st. So we'd have to move if somebody wants to work with me on this and what we decide to apply for.
I could work on you once I'm on the board, but I could help you with that. I've got people that I could suggest.
Yeah. I mean, I could be, it could be anything, because they did say something about virtual programming in the event things can't be done in person too, and I think there's a deadline on when the program has to take place by. It said spring, summer, so I think it has to happen before July or something. So it's a real quick timeline. But the other thing that when we do open the museum, I do want some kind of a ceremony to close the 300th anniversary time capsule, because that never happened. That was supposed to happen last March when everything got shut down. And the original plan was to house the time capsule at the library. But now that I'm involved in the museum, I'm more comfortable with the things being there and knowing how it's going to be set up and where it's going to be laid out. We have a treasure chest that we're going to put the stuff in. So I think that could be even if that was a virtual program where we just had a Zoom event where we were closing it and people could watch us close that wouldn't cost money. That could be done anytime. That wouldn't cost money. So that wouldn't be a grant thing. The grant thing, I was thinking that if we had a museum grand opening, that we could have musicians, but I'm not against a historical reenactment person either at all. What are the rest of you? Yeah, what do the rest of you think about what kind of programming we should apply for?
I'm very partial to historical reenactors.
Okay, I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, whatever we can come up with, I guess we'll have to see how most of it would just be logistics of how would we would be able to open, whether or not we'd be still have to do the 6 feet apart and all that.
And it also, I mean, if it could be a virtual program where the person does like what Steve did for his French neutrals thing, that they do a virtual, and then we can invite anybody on Zoom, that,
Mhm.
we could definitely use the library Zoom account for a program for the Historical Commission. I'm fine with that. So
I did participate last year, in which things were very buttoned down during it was mid-October of 2020, which things were very buckled down. Everybody was scared, at that point. And the Collings Foundation, American Heritage Museum, they had a program, and it was pretty good. I mean, basically what they did was they had socially distant, in this case, it was reenactors that were lined up representing different periods, and there were separate displays, and it was outdoors, and you just kind of looped through the displays. There was not, I don't think there was, and you could go inside too. You could go in the museum, and they just had limits on how many people could go in. You had to be limited, separate. But I mean, I think we could safely do something like that where we just have people filing in, through.
could we do it even do the programming on the common where there's lots of space?
Mhm.
And then invite people to the museum if we're ready for them to open afterwards. Do the
Or the little
park
that's
that's right there.
gotten,
Right.
that's where the police station used to be.
Right. Yeah. So if you guys are comfortable with Marjorie and I working on that together,
Yeah, getting people to cross that 140 there. I don't know about that, but
usually they have a police detail when they do things that are involving both sides of the street because
Mhm.
yeah, but I would think it would be. I mean, certainly you can invite people to the museum if it was on the other side of the street, but I would tend to lean towards one way or the other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Having it split like that, I think you'd end up with neither being very good.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if it depends on how much space the people need to do it, doing it on the common, I think is a great idea. We did all last summer. Steve did his story time on the common, with families outside on their own blankets, separated apart, and it worked out fine. And the town common trustees are kind of always looking for content and things to happen there. So I think we'd have to probably check in with them first, Marjorie, before we made the proposal that they were okay with being a venue.
And the goal of the program would be to let people know there is a historical museum and it's open, right?
Right, exactly. Right.
At this point too, is there anything that says, I mean, other than our lack of readiness, there's still work to be done, obviously. Is there anything constraining us from opening the museum? I mean, with certain restrictions.
Yeah, museums can be open, and I think it's just like libraries, it's 40% capacity, I believe, and I don't know what the capacity of the building. We'd have the building inspector give us a capacity number, but you probably could have 6 to 10 people in there. Now, I bet.
I bet you that's more than is routinely in there during normal operation anyway.
Exactly. So I think once we're ready, we get the building inspector in there. We're close to ready. Get the building inspector in there to get us some guidelines. And yeah, we might be able to start meeting in person once the place is cleaned out enough, or maybe even before. There is a meeting there is a conference table that's in there, so we could actually meet in person if the group is comfortable with it. That depends who's comfortable and who's not.
Yeah.
And there's nothing saying that some of us couldn't be in person and we couldn't still Zoom in the other people too.
I agree.
Right. I was thinking more April or May for that, because then we could leave doors and windows open and it would be a little more, airier in there.
April's next month.
It is next month. We meet early. Let's target May. Okay. So I'll be in touch with you, Marjorie, to work on. I'll send you a link to the application first. That way we can both be on board of what we're applying for.
I've done lots of cultural council grants too, so. Yeah.
Okay. So is there any other business?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hearing nothing. I will open it up for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You get a second?
Seconded.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Great.
This concludes our meeting at 6 p.m.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Take care. Good night.
All right.